You ever notice how every generation gets a villain arc? Boomers hoarded the houses. Millennials killed the doorbell. Gen X ghosted the whole conversation. And then there's the one everybody thinks they've got figured out. Gen Z, lazy, fragile, can't hold eye contact, addicted to a screen. Born between 1997 and 2012. The kids who grew up with the whole internet in their pocket and somehow came out more anxious, not less. The first generation raised entirely inside the camera. And here's what nobody wants to admit. We got them completely backwards. Their psychology might be the most misread of any generation alive because the thing that shaped them wasn't too little attention. It was too much of the wrong kind. Let's start with the thing that defined them before they could even talk. They were documented. And I don't mean a few baby photos in an album. I mean their entire childhood was filmed, posted, and archived before they had any say in it. Picture this. It's 2010. You're 6 years old. You do something small, knock over a cup, say something funny, and instantly there's a phone in your face. It's online before you finish the sentence. Grandma's already commenting. 100 people you'll never meet just watched you cry. By the time the average Gen Z kid turned 13, over 1,000 photos of them were already on the internet, posted by the people who were supposed to protect their privacy. That's not a few oversharing parents. That's an entire generation that learned before puberty that you are always being watched. There is no backstage. And that rewired something deep. Psychologists call it the imaginary audience. Except for Gen Z, it isn't imaginary. It's real, and it never logs off. Their brains got wired to perform even when nobody's in the room because for their whole lives, someone always was. That's why they can seem self-conscious in a way older people find strange. They're not vain. They're running a constant background process, checking how this looks from the outside because they were taught that the outside is always looking. But here's where it gets darker. Gen Z grew up being told they were special, constantly, loudly, and it never once felt true. Everybody got a trophy. Every drawing went on the fridge. Every tiny thing got a great job. The applause was endless. And that's exactly the problem. When praise is automatic, it stops meaning anything. You clap for everything. You've clapped for nothing. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Your brain adjusts to a constant reward until it goes numb to it. So you get a whole generation drowning in validation who feel completely unseen. They got likes but not attention, praise but not respect. A trophy for showing up, but never the thing they actually wanted, which was for someone to notice when they did something real. That's the cruel joke buried in the title. They were raised with applause, and that's precisely why they were raised without it. The clapping was so constant, it went silent. So they got suspicious of praise, compliment a Gen Zer too easily, and watch them flinch. They don't trust it. They've been handed empty applause their whole life, so "You're amazing" reads like noise. What they hunt for instead is something rarer, specific feedback, real critique, proof that you actually looked. Tell them exactly what worked and why, and you'll get more loyalty than 1,000 generic gold stars ever bought. Then there's the fear that runs underneath all of it. Gen X ducked under desks for the bomb. Gen Z did lockdown drills for the shooter. Think about that. Little kids taught to hide in a closet and stay silent in case someone comes to kill them at school, calmly, like a fire drill. Adults acting like mass violence is just weather now, a thing you prepare for and then go back to math class. When you're raised in that reality, you learn to hold two things at once. The world might end any given Tuesday, and also, here's your homework. So they did what Gen X did, they laughed. Doomer humor. Nihilist memes, joking about the apocalypse like it's a minor inconvenience. It looks like they don't care about anything. It's the opposite. They care so much that the only way to hold it is to turn it into a joke before it turns into a scream. Now layer money on top of that. The oldest Gen Zers were kids watching their parents panic through 2008. The youngest came of age into a pandemic, and prices that doubled while wages didn't move. They never had a stable before to remember. Instability is just the baseline. So they're careful with money in a way that looks anxious. Because it is. Multiple income streams before they're 20. A side hustle that's really a safety net. Not because they romanticize the grind, they actually hate hustle culture, but because they learned early that no single thing is safe. This is also why their relationship with work confuses everyone. They watched loyalty get people nowhere. They watched burnout dressed up as ambition. So they set boundaries. And older generations called it quiet quitting, like doing your job and going home is a moral failure. It isn't laziness. It's a refusal to bleed for something that would replace them in a week. They'll work incredibly hard, but it has to mean something. It has to respect their limits. Give them a reason and a boundary, and they'll outwork anyone. Their relationship with information is its own strange thing. Gen X had to earn knowledge in a library. Gen Z was born into infinite answers, every fact instantly for free. And when information is that cheap, the value flips. Knowing a fact means nothing. Everyone can Google it. So what they got weirdly good at is detecting lies. They can smell a fake influencer, a staged ad, a doctored story in seconds. They grew up swimming in manipulation, so they built the sharpest bad detectors any generation has ever had. Authenticity isn't a preference for them, it's the whole currency, which is exactly why they treat authority the way they do. They don't care about your title or your institution. They watched institutions fail in real time on their phones over and over. Climate warnings ignored, a financial system that imploded, a pandemic handled like a coin flip, leaders who lied while the receipts sat right there in the feed. So they don't hand respect to a position. They hand it to whoever's actually transparent, whoever shows their work. Fake competence gets exposed instantly and mocked. Real competence gets a following overnight. But here's the part that flips the whole script on the generation before them. Gen X buried everything. Asking for help felt like weakness. Gen Z did the opposite. They talk. They name what they're feeling. Anxiety, burnout, therapy, boundaries. It's all out loud, all normal. Older people mistake this for fragility. It's actually the boldest thing about them. They looked at a lineage of people quietly falling apart in private and decided they weren't going to do that. Saying I'm not okay out loud isn't weakness. It's a generation refusing to inherit silence. And the loneliness underneath it is real. Most connected humans in history, and among the loneliest, thousands of followers. Barely anyone to call at 2 a.m. So they build family out of whoever actually shows up, online, offline, doesn't matter. The friend 3 time zones away who answers every message. Chosen family, because the algorithm gave them everyone and no one at the same time. Here's the truth. Gen Z might be the first generation that never got to be unobserved. Never bored without a screen, never allowed to fail quietly and figure it out where nobody could see. They're not weaker than the ones before them. They're just the first to grow up with no backstage at all, performing a life while trying to find a real one underneath it. They're not the fragile generation. They're the exposed one, raised on applause so constant it stopped counting, still waiting for the one clap that actually means someone saw them. If this hits something in you, if you're Gen Z and finally felt understood instead of judged, or you're from an older generation and you just got why your kid, your sibling, that quiet 20-year-old at work acts the way they do, subscribe. It genuinely means a lot that you're here.